objective was, let's bring them in, show them these dungeons, and it'll be scary, it'll be spooky, and then we're gonna have a happy ending. But people were genuinely terrified. There was something about the energy in that castle. Some people say the one in Disneyland in California is also haunted. There's just something about Cinderella's castle that either people romanticize it or they think nothing is that perfect. Something about that place is sinister. It goes against everything Disney wanted, which is to make this castle feel like romance. Feel like you need to propose right now to your loved one in front of it. It feels like a happy ending, a fairy tale, which is very interesting, considering the fact that the real-life castle that Disney was inspired by, the Neuschwanstein Castle in Germany, it's got some dark past attached to it. Once upon a time, there was a man. His name is King Ludwig II of Bavaria, and if I were to be nice about it, they would call him the fairy tale king, because he lived in his own little Delulu land. He lived in his own little fairy tale land. So 2 years into him becoming king, he loses this big war to Prussia, and instead of being like, hold on, let me face reality, Bavaria is going down the toilet, I lost to Prussia, let me be strong to my subjects. He decides, no, I'm gonna live in my own fairy tale. I'm still going to rule over the biggest court of all the lands. So he loses himself in building this insane castle on this rocky cliff edge. It's like, I mean, if this were a villain horror story, it would be the villain's lair. He's like, no, I want it to feel like rocky cliff. We've got the towers that go up, all the stone, impenetrable defenses in case someone wants to storm it. It's gonna have 200 rooms, a ballroom, a theater with a big stage for all of his court to be entertained because he is the greatest king of all. This would be the Mad King's private escape from reality. And in this castle, he would be the ultimate king. He would actually dress up in medieval royalty clothing. Yeah, as Bavaria, his true reality, struggled with the loss of Prussia, King Ludwig continued to play make-believe. So he loses himself completely in this castle. He was driven mad. He starts borrowing insane amounts of money from foreign courts, going into debt, losing sleep over which room had to be painted what. He wanted each tower to look imposing, look straight out of an episode of Game of Thrones. And the fellow men of his court realize, this man is losing his mind. We are struggling, and the king is playing dress up on his cliffside castle. They decide he can rule no more. He was deemed unfit to rule by his own personal psychiatrist, diagnosed with madness, dethroned, and he was evicted from his precious castle. 3 days later, he was found mysteriously dead. It's suspected he was either murdered or he was a murderer. The King of Bavaria was found dead in the lake next to a psychiatrist who had defensive wounds all over his body. It was clear that the psychiatrist was killed, but what about the king? Did he kill his psychiatrist before ending his own life? Was it an accident, or were they both killed? Was King Ludwig really even mad? I guess we're never gonna really know the answers to these questions, but just weeks after King Ludwig's death, the castle was open for tourists.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, since
that quick.
That quick. And since then, it has become one of the biggest tourist attractions in the whole world. More than 61 million people have visited this castle. More than 1.3 million people visit this castle annually. During the summer months, you can expect to see about 6,000 visitors per day because they just want to look at the true real-life Cinderella castle, the fairy tale castle.
Long as she can crush your spirit.
I mean, it's beautiful. Despite its kind of sordid history, it's really pretty. I mean, you go up this massive cliff. I mean, typically with a tour guide, the best view of the castle is from this bridge that's like 200 feet in the air, suspended over the cliff. There's like waterfalls. There's a ravine. It's really breathtaking. I mean, just looking at the pictures. And then you see this castle with grayish exterior, these circular towers and intricate balconies, detailings, the windows. Everything feels like CGI magic. You just can't picture that there were humans that came and built this castle on the cliffside. Think Cinderella's castle at Disney, but 100 times bigger, and on a rocky cliff.
I'd shake her hand, but she can still snap me in two, so
the romantic Cinderella castle would be back in the news.
See your
not because of
delicious
Disney, not because of an
tonight.
alleged haunting, but because an Asian American tourist was allegedly assaulted and murdered at the real-life Cinderella Castle
Keep a blade
by a
close.
man who was just really into Asian women.
Let's move.
As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. This was a highly requested case that I've been trying to cover for, I want to say, a few months. I hoped that there would be a bit more information as time progressed, but it appears that this is just what we know so far, and we're waiting for a trial to happen in Germany.
well,
But
this is
as always, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts down in the comments.
What?
So with that being said, let's get started. The bridge overlooking the Cinderella Castle was already packed. I mean, even though it's Wednesday, June 13th at 11 a.m., there are people shoulder to shoulder on that bridge waiting in line to try and get a picture with the castle. There were as many phones up there as there were faces in the crowd. So amongst them, there's two Asian American women. We've got 21-year-old Eva Liu and 22-year-old Kelsey Chang. So they're patiently waiting to get on this bridge. I mean, this is the main bridge that tourists will go on to see the castle. There are hiking trails around here, around the castle, but this is the best place for views. This is the best place for pictures. This main bridge. People will take turns squeezing past each other just to try and take a picture. Even if there's a million tourists in the background of your photo, it's just that good. And then maybe when they're done taking that picture, they just take a second to stare at this castle. It was everything that everyone online said it would be. It was a million times more beautiful in real life. So Eva and Kelsey, they start walking around this area. They're taking in the fresh, sharp mountain air, taking pictures, hearing all these tourists giggling and talking in all these different languages. I mean, the energy there that day, particularly, was very heartwarming. Everyone just wanted to see a real-life castle. There's nothing tense about the situation. I mean, everyone's having a good time. There's families, there's kids. So Eva and Kelsey, they start walking around looking for the perfect shot of this castle. And they hear this voice. You girls American? The girls turn around, and this man, I mean, I don't know how to say this nicely, but this man looks like the poster child for an American man. I'm an American. I was born here, so can I say that? You know how Europeans say that they can
I don't talk to
their
prey.
spidey senses start tingling when there's like an American tourist even a mile away? They can spot one out in the crowd
Almost
like
hit him
that.
by your
That was this
fist
guy.
stick.
He's wearing a baseball cap, jeans,
Cherries.
t-shirt. He has a goatee and a big smile on his face. They turn around and they say, yeah, we're American. So cool, me too, I'm from Michigan. So
Raphael.
he's like striking up this conversation with them, and I'm sure they're bouncing it back politely. Oh, very cool, we've never been to Michigan. And the three start engaging in this
That
conversation.
perfume trickster
It does seem like the man was the one that
trapped
kept it
me.
going, but he wasn't creepy about it. He wasn't like, oh, what hotel are you staying at? He wasn't asking all these intrusive questions. He just seemed really excited to meet another American while he was abroad. Which is the
Labs,
thing.
this is-
Like when we were in Switzerland, we were really... My dad was so excited to see a couple staying at our hotel
No.
because they were Korean. We've never met this couple before. We don't know the first thing about this couple, but he's talking to them as if we were long-lost family friends. So it's very
Besides,
interesting when you're traveling, you build this like sense of
Die
companionship with someone that's from the same
Forfeit my
country as
freedom.
you, just because
If
they're
I
from the
leave
same
this
country
place
as you.
now,
So the girls
I'll
are
become
engaging in the
Raphael's
conversation,
slave.
and there is again nothing alarming about this man. He seems very
Raphael
nice.
is no
He's
foolish
also
story
super
teller.
knowledgeable
He's
about
mine.
Germany in general. He seems well traveled. He's telling them all the hottest local spots to grab food. He wasn't even suggesting, oh, why don't we go after? He's like, oh yeah, if you guys have time tomorrow, you should check out this place. It was just a genuine conversation. And then he says, hey, do you guys want to see the castle from another viewpoint? The bridge is usually the tourist spot, but like literally right over there,
Enough
there's a
prattle.
really clear
Time
part of the trail
to
where
die.
it just has the best view. It's kind of like a local secret. Last time I was up here, a local showed me. At first the girls are kind of hesitant, but they look around. It's broad daylight. There are kids shouting. There are families taking pictures. I mean, like I said, there's on busy days,
Americans.
6,000 people visiting this tourist site
Then kill
in a single
yourselves.
day.
Back to the
Everyone
house.
has their phone just left, right. Anything that's gonna be caught on camera is gonna be caught on camera here. It's one of the biggest tourist spots in the country, and this man has been nothing but normal and nice to them. Besides, if he's
still
not
hear
that
it.
nice, they could easily call for help or run. There's a lot of people. So they go. They go with the man and he starts taking them around the trail. And this trail has a bit of a curve that they hit. And it's got a lot of these overgrown heavy trees. It was a moment where it's kind of, they're getting out of sight from the tourist. It's kind of hard to make out what's in front of you, what's behind you because of the curvature of the trail. So technically the area is surrounded by mountains and sharp cliffs, but it's actually really safe. It just kind of feels dangerous because we're scared of heights. No fatal accidents have occurred by the castle or surrounding the castle or even on the trails near the castle. Everything is very clearly marked. It's easy to keep a safe distance from any cliff sides or steep ravines. Very, very easy. So this is around 2:30 to 2:40 p.m. that they start making their way down the trail with this man. And somewhere along this trail, the man's demeanor completely changes. He goes from being the nice guy next door to just a monster. I don't know how else to say it. Kelsey was walking a little bit ahead and she heard a scream, turned around to see the man trying to violently assault, presumably assault Eva. Trying to save her friend, Kelsey runs over, tries to pull this guy off of her best friend, and for a second it works because he's now backed off from Ava. His hands are in the air, but he doesn't run off. Kelsey's hoping, okay, now he's gonna know that we're gonna scream, we're gonna shout, people are gonna come and help us. He doesn't back off. Instead, he turns all of his attention to Kelsey now, puts his hands around her neck, starts choking her and pushing her, basically choking and walking her closer and closer till he gets to the cliff's edge, and then he flings her over the 165-foot drop. 165 feet is like throwing someone off the 17th floor balcony. The scarier part is this is a rocky cliffside. She could land on a sharp rock or a pile of them. I mean, she could keep falling down further. It's not like the bottom is 165 feet away. This is a very, very, very tall cliff.
For style, but certainly not for comfort.
It's worse than a 17th-story building. So the man turns to Ava, who's trying to fight him off with everything that she has. She's completely scratching up his face, getting his DNA under her nails, but also leaving him with these bright red streaks just across his cheeks, his forehead. But once he was done with her, and it's not confirmed, but it's presumed that he either tried or did essay her. When he was done, he threw her 165 feet off the cliff as well. A complete stranger thought that it was his God-given right to use a woman for pleasure and throw two women off the cliff when he was done with them. So when news starts spreading of this case, people are pissed off. People are so pissed off at the audacity of this guy. They start going online and saying, okay, well, if it's an eye for an eye, someone throw this man off a cliff. And I completely understand the concept of an eye for an eye, right? A life for a life. But what if the two lives are not equal to begin with? That is the question that a lot of netizens have been having with this case. Troy Bowling is the man that we're talking about. He was known in his neighborhood for walking his cat on a leash. It is unclear if the cat liked it or not. Yeah, we don't know.
You can do that?
I googled it. It said that most cats don't enjoy it. But you can train them when they're very young to walk on a leash.
Oh, fascinating.
It's fascinating, yeah. But that was pretty much what the 30-year-old man's favorite pastime was going out in Lincoln Park, Michigan, where he lives with his brother, and walking his cat. And we don't really know much else about this guy. Everyone said, you know, he's quiet. He minded his own business. I mean, apparently, not a single neighbor was like, oh, that's cool. You walk your cat. Nobody even talked to him. Like, he just didn't seem that approachable. But he didn't seem mean.
Unworthy of
like, we're not approaching him because he's evil and terrifying and
Strange little
violent.
beast.
We just thought,
I would have made
what an
short work
interesting
of it
guy.
once.
He always just stayed in the house with his brother. If you did pass him on his little catwalk, he just wouldn't make eye contact with you. It was weird. Like, you know how you walk and you're like, okay, we should make eye contact now so we can like wave and like do the whole neighbor thing? Yeah, no, he did
Raz
never
isn't
make eye
merely territorial.
And then sometimes you just wouldn't see the guy for weeks at a
This
time. I
place
mean, nobody
means a
knew if
great
he's in the
deal
house,
to
out of
it.
the house.
We've always been
He
here.
never lived in the house.
It's
It's
ours.
weird.
We watch over
So
it.
yeah, we don't know what he was
You
up
do
to.
not belong.
That's what the neighbors are saying.
Unwelcoming
But
vermin
we
aside, we
know what he was
Leave.
up to. He was arrested
Away.
briefly in 2016 on embezzlement charges, but eventually those charges were dismissed.
This is the path of heroes.
And the rest of his free time, a lot of his
sully
close
it.
friends said that he spent playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Talking of you.
And also,
Intruder,
he would tell a bunch of
invader,
Asian women
unworthy
that he
one.
met online
These halls
how
are
much
not
he
for
liked
you.
Asian women. Don't even get me started on this, okay? So
The
a
rat
woman from
holds its
Thailand, let's
ground.
call her Cece.
It
Cece
almost
said that she and
seems
Troy met online
defiant.
while they were playing a video game, and they just started hitting it off.
We are
He seems like a
small,
nice
but
guy.
many.
He seems really genuine. It was just this
See what
huge
happens.
online friendship and
Try
nothing
it.
more. They were
Lot more
texting
guts
every
than
day,
you'd
but that was it.
A lot more.
And Troy was actually texting her the whole time that he was up in the mountains. So he had texted her prior to trying to assault and throw two women off of a cliff. She said, I never saw the red flags. I mean, I don't know what he was thinking. The day of, on that mountain, he was sending me pictures of himself on the mountain. He also told me about a random dream that he had last night. The text read, I had a dream that I was sleeping in the room and wanted to open the window to get a breeze. But it was too loud outside. And for most of it, I was watching my body, and I wasn't in my body, if that makes any sense. He texted her that while he was climbing up the mountain. And then he texted her, I climbed it. It went about 328 feet, only tree roots and branches for stepping and grabbing. Then he sent her another ominous picture. It was two people kneeling in a small area that seems really secluded that's overlooking the castle, and he texted, now I get to sit here and look at these two try and get the perfect Insta. So it's actually speculated that this is him scouting out locations that were secluded and easier to assault people in. He's filling Cece in on his very, quote, normal day, right to the point where he tries to murder two Asian women. And one of the last things that I thought about when I was researching Eva Lou was Cinderella. Because, you know, this is all happening at the Cinderella castle, and I mean that with the utmost respect. It's not about fairy tales, it's not about love, but she really just didn't feel like she needed a Prince Charming. That's like what I just kept getting from her story. Eva was the type of person that she knew what she wanted at a young age and worked nonstop ever since she was a kid to get to that point. She only counted on herself. She had this twin sister named Alice, and the two of them would do everything together. They would run around terrorizing their parents. I'm kidding, but apparently they were these really cute, well-behaved kids. They're identical twins. They would wear the same clothes. They played the piano, and they had this party trick where one of them would play with their left hand and the other one would play with their right hand, and they just had opposite personalities. Alice said that she was super shy, and Eva was the one that always encouraged her to get out there, go talk to people, like live a little. They grew up in Canada before moving to the US, and eventually, Eva would actually work her way into one of the most prestigious programs in the country. She studied computer science at the University of Illinois, which is ranked 5th in the nation for computer science programs. The first 4 being MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, and Carnegie Mellon.
Wow.
It's so impressive. Like, the amount of things that Eva was able to balance during her life. She would study all day. During the weekends, she would volunteer at church. One time, her sister walked in on her in the dorm room. There were 2 girls in Eva's room. One on the desk, one on the bed. Eva is tutoring the one on the desk right before her exam, and the other friend was having a mental breakdown on the bed, and Eva was alternating between helping one friend solve a mathematical equation and then turning around and trying to console her friend that everything was gonna be okay. She's doing all of this while maintaining her studies and excelling. So she graduates from the University of Illinois, and she secures a full-time position at Microsoft as a software engineer, which is insane. Like, that's really impressive to have right out of college. She was gonna start this year, July 2023. And between May, which is when she graduates, she's got the month of June. She's got most of the month of June before she gets into her first corporate job, and she's thinking, okay, why don't I do something crazy? Because once I get into this job, it's gonna be years of me trying to climb the corporate ladder or trying to find my passion. This is my chance to be free. So she talks to one of her best friends who also just graduated, Kelsey Chang, and they decide, let's do a Europe trip. I mean, okay, it sounds crazy, but it's not really crazy because they earned it. They worked their asses off to get through school, and they secured their future spots, and now they're just gonna spend 3 weeks seeing the world. I mean, when else are they gonna do this? Which, side note, Eva and Kelsey were really safe travelers. Not that it would matter even if they weren't, because it doesn't matter. Like, that's just victim blaming. But just to preface, they really were. So they were the type to not stay out after dark. They would review and plan their itinerary really well. They were constantly aware of their surroundings and really only headed to popular, populated, touristy spots. Again, nothing would have changed if they hadn't been doing that, but I'm just stating. So the first stop was Budapest, then Vienna, Prague, and now Germany was their last leg of the tour before they went home, which apparently Munich is one of the prettiest cities in all of Europe. They say that the architecture is breathtaking, the streets are beautiful, there's parks, scenery, lakes, forests, there's all these little cafes and shops around the city center. More than that, it's internationally known as one of the safest cities for female tourists. So again, they're like, okay, this is kind of perfect because we're two girls traveling on our own. One of the last things that they wanted to do on this trip was visit the famous Cinderella Castle. June 13th, 2023, Eric Abernary from New York City. So this is a man from New York City. He was at the castle too. And he had never seen anything like this castle. Like, hear him out. The Brooklyn Bridge, beautiful. But this castle is something else. And the bridge that he's on, soaking in the sight of this beautiful castle, it was insane. And then all of a sudden he sees this bright red helicopter just swarming, doing circles. He's like, that's weird. That's really weird. It's getting closer and closer and closer. What are they looking for? So he and other tourists, they start looking under the bridge, over the bridge. They're like, what is this helicopter doing here? And it's very loud. So people start rushing over. Suddenly the castle that they all wanted to take pictures of, meaningless. Now they want to know what's going on. Is it a mountain climber? Is it some sort of animal? Did someone fall? Eric starts scanning his eyes along the river at the foot of the mountain, and he sees two young women just on the ground. They look closer to teenagers than anything. One of them was moving but hanging onto a tree, so it looks like she was stuck in a tree or landed on a tree. The other one was laying motionless on the ground. So the crowd, they start dispersing, they start whispering in their own native languages since they're all tourists, and the red helicopter is loud, trying to circle the area nonstop. Rescuers are coming down on rope, being lowered into the dense tree-lined rocky cliff. It looked like they were sending down a claw machine, just trying to catch something, going up, failing, trying to go back down. It was weird. So the rescue mission for the two women, I mean, it was very difficult. The terrain is dangerous. It's impossible for normal police forces to go in and get them. So special alpine rescue missioners were used, and people were wondering, like, do you think the girls fell? Do you think they slipped? Didn't someone lure them over there? It felt like I saw someone go over there with them. When one of the girls was being lifted onto the helicopter, the rest of the tourists could see she was moving. Thank God, she was alive.
Let's get on with it.
Kelsey would call Eva's twin sister and say, Alice, he threw us off the cliff. While Kelsey was being rescued on a stretcher, she called Eva's twin to tell her that the man pushed them both off the cliff, and he had been trying to assault Eva. So that man was Troy Bowling. He was not that hard to catch. All exits out of the tourist spot were shut off immediately. 25 emergency vehicles were sent to the scene. I'm talking cars, helicopters, sniffer dogs, like everything. A lot of netizens speculated that Eva actually helped in catching their perpetrator. His face was bright red with all of these wounds from Eva, and it was pretty easy to pick him out from the crowd. And he was about to be charged with homicide. Kelsey had survived the fall, so she had fallen onto a tree. Now, even though she fell 165 feet, just like Eva had, because she fell on a tree at an angle, it softened the impact and helped her survive. She was responsive when the rescuers got to her. She was able to talk, able to communicate. This is kind of a crazy miracle. Falling nearly 165 feet, Kelsey only had minor injuries.
Wow.
A few bruises and scratches, as well as bleeding from like a shallow injury to her head, but other than that, Kelsey was okay. Eva landed just a few feet away from her friend, so nearly in the same spot, but she landed flat on the ground. There was no tree there to break her fall, and that would literally be the difference between life or death. We're not sure the extent of Eva's exact injuries, but she was unresponsive when rescuers arrived, and she would pass away the night of at only 21 years old. She stayed at the hospital morgue while her family flew in from across the world to be with her. They just wanted to bring her body back home. So the family, they flew to Germany, flew back to the US with Eva on Father's Day, June 18th, 2023. Eva's father said it was the most painful Father's Day of his entire life. And the worst part, the more painful part, is that German prisoners probably live better lives than the average free American citizen. Prisoners in Germany live in rooms. They look more like hotel rooms rather than prison cells. They sleep in proper beds, so not concrete bunk beds with mattress pads thrown on top. Guards at German prisons are advised to knock before going into prisoners' rooms. They have privacy. They don't have just bars. If prisoners are hungry, they can walk to the communal kitchen and cook their own meals.
Everything.
They get paid for work. They have opportunities to leave the prison and hang out with their family, learn skills, get an education. They can even decorate their little hotel room.
That's where he's at right now?
Yeah. It said German prison cells look more like maybe dorm rooms at liberal arts colleges. You get phones in your hotel cell so that you can call anyone at any time that you want. You can even call the media if that's what you want. You get forks and knives, like real forks and knives. I mean, it honestly doesn't even sound like a prison, and I do just want to disclaim something. I think the US prison system is not great at all. I mean, I've been pretty vocal about wanting to learn more about the system in general and how it targets the underprivileged, and clearly Germany is doing something all right, since they have lower crime rates than the US, they have less reoffending criminals. But for this case in particular, a lot of netizens were angered that an American tourist killed 2 American citizens abroad. He should face American prison.
Yeah. Why is he not here?
Because the crime took place in Germany and there is no plan to extradite him to the US. Now, a lot of netizens are just really pissed off about all of this. I mean, the idea that he tried to kill 2 successful, hardworking women that would have been incredible figures in their communities, workplaces, and even just in society, just because he felt like it was his right to? Just because he felt like he could and that he was above them somehow and he could just discard them like that as if like they're objects? So after all of that, he's gonna be decorating his little hotel cell with construction paper art and eating snacks on his foam mattress bed while chatting on the phone? That's crazy. I mean, the idea of that to a lot of netizens was insane. A lot of netizens demanded he be brought back to the US so he could be tried for murder and potentially face the death penalty here, since Germany won't do that for him.
Must be where
Most
initiates
people
undertook
that
their
are
final
sentenced to life in prison for murder in Germany, they get out in 15 to 20 years. But as of right now, Troy Bowling is being held in Germany in prison on suspicion of murder, attempted murder, and attempted assault. Germany also has really intense privacy laws when it comes to court cases, so we can kind of assume that's why we just don't have as much information on this case. But the US, I will say, once they found out Troy Bowling's name, journalists swarmed his family home trying to get information from his family members. One German reporter stated that when they went to Troy's mom and asked for comment on the incident, she claimed, "My son wasn't even in Germany." She pretended confused, as if the whole thing was just a silly little situation of mistaken identity. Which of course added fuel to the fire. I mean, more people wanted to know, who is this lady? What was she thinking? What kind of son did she raise? Is she part of the problem?
So she knew it was him.
Okay, that's what was reported. It was actually not the truth. The statement that she actually gave to the German reporter was, "We have to find out what happened, so we won't comment." And somehow it got really twisted in these
No need to dash in ahead of
news
me.
reports, and
I'm
now
ready.
it's kind of like this belief that his mom was going around like, "What are you
Some
talking
prayers are
about? My
answered more
son wasn't
quickly
in
than
Germany."
others. Let's continue.
Yeah. Now, a lot of discourse around this case has been around the fetishization of Asian women,
Party
since
is
apparently
gathered.
Troy told
You
Cece
are
from
ready.
Thailand that he was into
Or so
Asian
you
women.
hope.
The 2 women that he attacked and one that he killed was Asian, so it made sense to a lot of netizens. I mean, the connection, right? But here's what I find fascinating about this case. Which, side note, apparently he also told Cece that he was too logical and too private of a person to make friends and build connections. Listen, anytime someone tries to convince you that they're too logical, like, run the other way. He portrayed himself to be this workaholic with a strict disciplined schedule. I don't know, it's just weird. But this is the fascinating part, right? Everyone said that he was never overly creepy. Everyone. People were tracking down old classmates, ex-girlfriends. Everyone said, you know, he's overly friendly, but he wasn't creepy by any means. An old classmate of his said, I remember he had very few friends and he just wasn't the type of person that you would go out of your way to have a conversation with because it just wouldn't go anywhere. He's a bit odd, very closed off, but never seemed like an angry kid, never showed any violent tendencies that I can recall. I mean, he was just quiet. Another classmate said, yeah, I mean, nothing spectacular. And what's fascinating is not that people didn't realize that he had a hidden side of him, or that they were blindsided or shocked. It's the fact that most of the people speaking out weren't Asian. Okay, hear this theory out. So his ex-girlfriend came out and said that he was totally normal. She said, I just can't think of a time where he was even mean. I can't even think of a time where he was rude or hurtful or disrespectful. Like, it's mind-boggling to me that that happened because he was never violent. He was just this quiet, shy guy. Side note, none of these people are defending Troy. Nobody's arguing that what he did is horrendous. They're just giving stories of him since that's what journalists were digging for. So this has nothing to do with them, but it is fascinating because a big part of Asian women fetishization is that Asian women, to a lot of these guys, are not seen as humans. So these men are typically known to treat women of their race with a lot of respect. But they almost treat Asian women like dolls.
Yeah, I just don't imagine someone can flip a switch and just toss someone off the cliff.
Yeah,
What an action to take.
He didn't snap.
It's not even like just punching
Damn, it's good to be alive.
someone, right? Throwing someone off the cliff. That is crazy.
Yeah, so that's why don't you think it's a little fascinating? The way
Right.
that people are saying, no, he wasn't even violent. And I think it's, no, because you weren't the demographic in which he felt these urges. And that's why these like fetishes,
I'd love to, thanks.
they're dangerous, they're scary. He just probably didn't see Asian women as humans. That's really a big part of the discourse around Asian women being fetishized. They're often seen as objects. Like, there's this narrative ingrained in culture that Asian women are submissive, that they'll do whatever you want, they're soft, they don't mind doing domestic chores, they live to please. And there are some wild forums out there where men will talk about all these women, and I'm not saying that they're very respectful, but like the ones that have these fetishes, when it comes to talking about Asian women, I swear it's some of the most vile stuff that you will ever see. There was this one guy who posted on a forum. He's posting about his own daughter. Okay? This is a white man posting about his own daughter.
His daughter is Asian?
Half Japanese because his wife is Japanese, right? His own flesh and blood.
Making me sweat.
And he wrote in the forum about how his daughter is a, quote, geisha doll. And he is contemplating assaulting her. His own daughter. Another forum had a man asking, like, full sincerity. He's like, no, genuinely, I just need help. Like, hand to my heart. I have a genuine question. Please take me seriously. Can I still be a white supremacist if I want to sleep with East Asian women?
What?
Yeah.
Huh. What a question.
Well, yeah, but he was like so genuine. Like, oh, guys, I'm really confused about this. In a separate forum, there was a an article titled 12 Commandments Asian Women Must Follow When Dating White Masters. And it included, and it was not limited to, never sleeping with anyone other than the white master, especially never other Asian men or black men. Also, if the Asian woman ever gets sick, gains weight, or loses her youth, or stops being obedient, they can be sold off or sent back to China or wherever they came from. So I just think it's a little fascinating. In other cases, you know, people are saying things like, oh, I had no idea since he was so nice. And I'm like, yeah, well, you really never know when people do crazy things. You never know what they're thinking behind closed doors. But this one, a lot of the discourses, it doesn't seem like he was that good at hiding himself. Just all the people coming out saying that he was nice were not Asian women. So we genuinely don't know if he had been terrorizing Asian women his whole life. We don't know. And then another part of the discourse was, it's not even about Asian women, it's just the audacity. Like, a lot of women were so pissed because Eva worked so hard to get to where she was, and a man decided, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna throw them off a cliff because I'm not getting what I want from their bodies. How do you get to a point where that even makes sense in your head? So I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see how this plays out in Germany. During Eva's funeral, Alice, her twin sister, gave a really touching speech about how much Eva has been there for her. She had always been looking out for her and even provided financial support for her sister. Even they're the same age, they're twins. And she said, Alice, go focus on school. If you're stressed about money, I can work, I can send you money. I just want you to do well. Alice said, I've grown very accustomed to knowing that Eva will always be there for me. And at the risk of sounding like I'm in denial, I know she will always be there for me. A close friend of Eva's said, life is a bit darker right now. Eva had a bigger heart than just about anyone I've ever met. But I'm finding comfort in knowing that she's still here. She lives on in Alice and in her family and in her family members, and love doesn't go away because a person goes away. And that is the crazy story of the recent murder that took place at the real-life Cinderella Castle. What are your thoughts? I mean, this one I genuinely was at such a loss for words while I'm researching.
I started using custom hair care products from Pros after I started suspecting that I was using the wrong products for my straight.
Bada bing, bada boo.
May woke up naturally in the middle of the night. She starts adjusting her eyes to the dark, and for a brief moment, she's thinking, yeah, no, I'm sleeping. I'm having a nightmare. Because there are 4 strange men standing on either side of her bed. She's got 2 men on her left, 2 men on her right, and they're staring down at her sleeping. It was so dark, at first all she saw were their eyes. Just imagine 4 pairs of eyes watching you sleep from above. She panics, tries to sit up, but they start reaching for her. They're grabbing her. They each pin down an arm and a leg. They must have done this before, or at least come prepared, because they flipped her upside down in this one swift motion. Now she's on her stomach, on her bed. They start hog-tying her with a rope. Her arms are getting tied together, her legs are getting tied together, and then her legs and her arms are getting tied together behind her. Have you seen a hog tie?
Yeah.
It's like the most uncomfortable tie ever. I mean, not only is it uncomfortable, but there is literally nothing that she could do but maybe roll around. And May always thought, you know, what if something like this happens to me? She never thought that it would happen in her own family home, while her siblings are asleep right next door, while her parents are in their room asleep. This is technically where she's the safest. She thought about it in public. What if someone tries to kidnap me or do something at the grocery store? What am I gonna do? She always thought, my fight or flight will kick in. But now, when it really mattered, all May did was freeze. They start picking her up, moving her off the bed. She briefly tries to kick them, but the 4 men are really strong. They carry her like a hog, out of her room, out of the house, and into their van. They throw her in the back, and for the next 36 hours, she would be stuck in that van. And they were driving the whole time too. So it's not like she was being held captive in the van. She had no idea where the hell they were going. She didn't know if they were driving in circles to purposely confuse her, disorient her, or if they're driving across the country. The longer they're in the van, the more she feels like my chances of ever seeing my family again, down the drain. She wasn't even allowed to get out and use the restroom for 37 hours straight, which of course she tried. She tried begging the kidnappers, like, I'm gonna pee back here. They didn't care. She thought, if I can get into a rest break restroom, I can try and escape, alert someone that I'm being kidnapped. But she was not allowed out of the van. She didn't even stand a single chance. When May was finally let out, the 4 men stripped her down, so she's completely unclothed, and they threw her in a cell. No windows, no light, not even a mattress on the floor. Just 2 buckets, one with dirty water for her to drink, and one for her to relieve herself in. They slam the door shut, everything goes black, and she's locked in. During the first few days, May is pounding on the door, demanding to be let out, or at least let me know what you're planning for me. Like, why would you do this to me? Then she went into the anger phase. She threw herself up against the wall. She's cursing through the door. She's promising these 4 men when she gets out of here, she's gonna rip their heads open on the floor. But eventually, just like all the other people that were in this cell before her, she gives up. She lays down naked on the floor, and she didn't even know if 2 minutes had passed or 2 days had passed. She just laid there and she thought about her parents. And she kept replaying over and over again in her mind the last time that she saw them. They had been helping hold the door open for the 4 kidnappers to drag May out of the house. That was the last time she saw her parents. As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. Quickly, a few things to note. Today's case does include a lot of mentions of attempts to cut one's life short. And if that's something that you think will be hard for you to listen to or will evoke very strong emotions. Also, today's case is a little stomach churning. There's a lot of gross details which we have to address. So if that's also something that's difficult to hear, this might be the best one to skip, and we can see each other again on Sunday for the mini-sode. Also, today's case takes place in China. We worked with our wonderful Chinese translators on this one, but as always with any foreign case, or really just like any case in general, let us know if there was something lost in translation or if there's anything that we left out. So with that being said, let's get into it. May was in what the others called the silent room. The silent room has no windows, no lights, no vents. I mean, it's a box. It's a cell with 1 door in and 1 door out. That's it, just 1 door. And this door is always triple locked, quadruple locked. I mean, you would think that they're imprisoning some of the world's most dangerous criminals in a cell like this. But most of the people held in the silent room were between the ages of 9 and 17 years old. Almost always, they were naked. You would not be able to leave for any reason for close to 2 weeks. On average, people were kept in there 8 to 9 days. You wouldn't be allowed to brush your teeth, your hair, even shower. You wouldn't even be able to look into a mirror. And like, okay, that sounds dumb, Stephanie. If I'm being held captive, the last thing on my mind is looking in a mirror and plucking my eyebrows. And I agree, but a lot of people said, it's so dark in there, and you're left with nothing but your thoughts, and you're being treated like this animal, you start to lose your sense of identity really quickly. You start to feel like you are not even in your own body. Your identity becomes a void. There are some arguments on whether or not the silent room is worse during winter or during summer. But I think most of the victims would say summer. There are no vents. The temperatures inside can easily get up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And the rooms are smeared with human feces that has dried. It's dank, it's musty, it's moldy, and all you get are 2 buckets. One with dirty brown water, so it's probably safe enough to drink but not clean enough, if that makes sense. And then another bucket to relieve yourself. every day at random times, so you never fall into a routine. You don't even know if it's nighttime, daytime, like time loses its concept. A man in a white robe opens the door, throws you a boiled egg and some rice that tastes straight up like glue. That's all you eat the whole day. A tiny little bowl of rice and one boiled egg. The captives would actually try and listen for footsteps when the captors were coming to give them food, not because they dared to try and escape. At that point, you're probably 5 days in and you know that's dumb. But they just wanted to be near the door for at least a moment when it opened so that they could get a little bit of air that wasn't human feces. The only place for you to sleep is on the ground. So you just lay there naked on the ground, but clearly this place is not sanitary. The room is filled with cockroaches, rats, and millipedes, so the ones with 1,000 legs. A lot of captives remember feeling fear that they're unclothed, they're vulnerable on the ground, and then these insects and animals, they're scared that they're gonna crawl into them or start nipping at them or eating them. Xiao Yang was in the silent room, so we're gonna call him Yang for the rest of this episode. But he had been in that silent room just like May. He wanted to escape every second that he was in there, but he also had a lot of time to think about it. And there was just no way to escape. These men were smart. They confused him. Before bringing him into the silent room, they disoriented him. They walked him through a bunch of random hallways. He's just being pushed and shoved by these scary men in these white cloaks. They look like white floor-length robes from ancient Tang Dynasty times. It's just unsettling. This is happening in like 2017. Why are they wearing that? Why are they all in uniform? Why are they all walking in sync? It was as if they were forming this human bubble around him, just keeping him going. They would turn left, right, left, left, left again, and then they opened a hidden door. At this point, he doesn't even know where he is in the building. It looks like he's outside now because he can see the sky, but is this the second floor courtyard? Is this the backyard? He doesn't even know. There's just walls that go up at least 12 feet. There's no ledges. He can't crawl out of there. And in front of him, there's 3 doors. It's creepy. It's like one of those hypothetical questions. You have to open one door. One room has a raging fire, the other one a starving lion, and another one there's a monster. Which door do you choose? That's what this feels like. Young said he was so terrified, his whole body tensed for a minute, and then finally his instincts kicked in. He remembered these evil men in cloaks hadn't taken his phone. So in this swift motion, he reaches into his pocket trying to catch them off guard, pulls out his phone, and starts recording the men in white. He's pointing the camera at their faces, trying to get all of their faces in there, and he's like, I'm gonna call the cops on you. One of them knocks his phone to the ground, and in that moment, his fear slips away, and he's just angry. They shattered his $900 phone. That he saved up months to buy this phone. And then slowly it dawned. Any possible way out of here, like calling the authorities, it shattered with that phone. 17-year-old Young absolutely lost it.
Party is gathered. You are ready, or so you hope.
I mean, he went feral. He's thinking, this is my only chance before, I don't know, I get sacrificed. Like, these men are creepy. Why the hell are they wearing cloaks? This feels like they're gonna perform some sort of ritual on me and I'm the sacrifice. He starts physically fighting to try and escape from the door that they just came through, but he's outnumbered. The group of men, they hold him down. So there's about 3 of them that hold him down. One of them is just watching, walks over to one of the 3 doors in front of him, swings open the door. They throw him in and pin him up against the wall. He's now in the silent room. He's still thrashing around, but he's kind of taking in his environment, and it's bad. All he sees are 2 buckets, and the entire room was the smell made his eyes water. It's like stinging his nose. It reeks of human waste that's been sitting for decades.
Party.
After understanding, oh my God, I could be trapped in here, because that's what it feels like. I feel like they're gonna walk out of here and lock the door. Young starts freaking out even more. He's trying everything. So at first he's screaming, like trying to get their sympathy. Like, I'm so sorry, I don't know what I did wrong, but I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. And then he gets angry and he's like, you know what, when I get out, you're gonna get arrested. You can't just do this to people. And then eventually, out of sheer desperation and honestly some truth behind it, he starts begging. Please, can I just use the restroom for a second, please? Like, I need to go to the restroom. Please, just let me out. Young tries one last time to physically push back against the men that are holding him up against the wall. And they're not even just holding him, they're like slamming him back, slamming his head, the back of his head onto the hard surface. And then he goes numb. He stops fighting and his eyes go blank. The men must have noticed because they let go of him and they just watch him slump down to the ground. In his extreme fear, Young had defecated himself. Which is more common than you think. When someone is in a life or death situation, the nerves in the digestive tract, they start contracting rapidly and you might lose control over your bowels. So he pooped himself. And he slumped on the ground, just defeated, because he's never done that before. And he watches all the men file out of the room, slam the door shut, and he hears all these metal locks clinking. Eventually, he crawls over to the door and starts pounding. Please, hello? Is anyone there? I just need to use the restroom real quick. Nobody responded. And they would not respond for a while, because this is how they're gonna break him. Whoever these people were, they wanted to turn teenagers into tabula rasa, which are blank slates that they can start from scratch with. They wanted to be able to be the ones that program these kids. But how do you do that? You gotta break the kids first. You have to make them blank in the mind. The first step is to penetrate the psyche. The only way to destroy a person's mind was to find your way inside first. You have to get into their heads, but not in the way that it's like, oh, put yourself in someone else's shoes. No, you make them vulnerable, you make them weak so their minds aren't heavily guarded. And once you get in their head, you see what they value. Maybe they value dignity, maybe it's privacy, like what do they like about themselves? And then you start breaking it apart, piece by piece, until you're left with nothing. You strip them of their will, you break them psychologically, physically, everything. These people are never half-assed about this part. They think this is the most important part in their goals and plans. You can't just assume, oh, well, I'm sure this person is broken enough. These people make sure you're broken in that silent room. No matter how long it takes, they've got the patience. They will wait to exhaust every last ounce of willpower and fight that you've got left in you. And then, only then, tabula rasa, blank slate. Stripped of humanity, individuality, you are moldable into whatever these men have in store for you. And the first thing that they program into your mind, once it's new, is fear. Young had no idea how much time had passed in the silent room, but he definitely felt like he was breaking. I mean, he's sitting there marinating in his own feces. He said eventually even his tears dried up and all that rage, you know, because in the beginning he's like, I'm gonna kill these people when I get out. Just they wait, the cops aren't gonna be okay with this. All of that was just gone. He didn't even feel alive. He wanted to turn into one of the rats that he spotted in the corner. Maybe their life is better than his. And then finally, there's a noise on the other side. He scrambles back into his feet and rushes towards the door. Hello, is anyone there? Get me out of here, please, please. Give me your clothes, then you can come out and clean yourself. Young is thinking about it for a brief moment. Then he decides, okay, yeah, I have no fight left in me. He takes off all of his clothes, balls it up, hands it to the arm that's now reaching through the small open crack in the door. And he's standing there butt naked, like not even underwear. And he's expecting the hand to bring him some uniform or some set of clothes or something, right? Is it a prison uniform? Is this prison? Feels like it. But the man just swings open the door, letting the light in. And Young turns away because his eyes had adjusted to the dark rather fast, and now it feels like it's burning his retinas. The bathroom is this way. The guard nods his head toward the door that he had been initially dragged through. And Young looks down. He didn't even have his underwear on. So now he has a choice. Stay in this room for God knows how long, or get out and get cleaned up. He starts moving his feet forward and he feels like he's some sort of zombie. He follows the guards towards the showers and he's thinking, what the hell is this place? Is this some sort of cult? There's a bunch of adults walking around in white robes and they're clearly the ones in charge. And then there's a bunch of young kids between 9 to maybe early 20s, all in these deep red robes. And none of them are talking to each other. They're not talking to the people wearing white. They're not talking to each other. It was weird. And now Young is walking past them, around them, with them to get to the restroom, and he's fully naked. It's like one of those stereotypical high schooler nightmares where you're like, oh, I'm gonna give a speech and then I'm gonna wake up naked and it's a whole nightmare. But it's not a nightmare. He could feel every single person's eyes staring at him.
The fate you seal is your
Because this
own.
was the final step.
To be a
Young
dark
would lose
justiciar
all
is to
sense
turn
of
your
dignity
heart
and
from
privacy.
everything but loss.
When he was done
You will
washing
know
up, he
no
was
love,
thrown back into the
no
silent
joy,
room,
only
still
servitude,
unclothed.
until,
But
of
on the
course,
way
your
back,
mistress inevitably
he passed a
discards
sign
you.
on the wall. Welcome to
And there is
Yuzhang
much she
Academy.
does not tell you.
Yuzhang Academy
A
didn't
terrible
often
blood
have
price
these open
that may
houses
extend beyond
where the
my
gates
own
would
death.
open
You
and
feel
excited
Shadowheart
parents would take these
bristling.
guided tours with
This is
teachers to see,
important
where are my kids living? It's
Your
a boarding
bond is
school.
strong.
What are they eating? Who are they hanging out with?
Be
Who are
able
their
to sway
friends?
her from the path of
But when
duty
Yuzhang did
to the
have these
path
open
of
houses
light.
once every blue moon,
Night
it
Song
was
is
a
not blind to
spectacle.
your conflict.
Parents would shuffle in
Behind
their
that
best
raging
clothes for a
heart is the
tour through the
restless
gates.
beat
They
of
would
one who
come in
knows
through the
too well
courtyard before the main building, and the
her
courtyard had these
fate
stone-paved
hangs in the
pathways
balance.
leading up to the main door, and there was moss and trees. It kind of almost had a European vibe to it, There were these tall white cement walls that were at least 12 feet tall. And it's interesting because it's all perspective. To some people, it could very well feel like a prison. But if you're feeling optimistic like these parents, it's like a sanctuary. It keeps the chaos of the city out. It keeps our kids safe, and all this greenery. It's so zen. It's more like a castle than anything. And they're sniffing around. It's just me, or does the air even feel fresher here? And the place is so tranquil. That's the word, They might as well have been playing spa music. It just feels so nice. The parents are getting a guided tour of room by room, and each of them are thinking, well, yeah, okay, no wonder our kids don't even call us that often. It's so nice here. They're really having way too much fun. This part feels a little weird. Some of them kind of raise their eyebrows. It's kind of like they're at Hogwarts. It's strange. This is in 2017. This is a private academy. You have to pay to get in. And I would imagine that if the academy requires uniforms, it would be the standard. Pleated skirts, trousers, dress shirts, smart blazer, or sweaters with the school emblem. Now, the kids are walking around in red robes. Deep, red wine-colored robes. And the parents think it's interesting. Like, imagine going to a Korean private school and everyone is dressed in hanboks instead of regular school uniforms. The parents didn't feel that creeped out about it, though. They actually really liked it. And every
Night
single
Song is
student
not
that was
blind
in
to
this
your
building,
conflict. Behind
perfect
that
posture.
raging heart.
The teachers who wore similar clothes but in white, perfect
Yes, I
posture.
think so.
Girls had their hair pulled back in a sleek low bun,
Whole
and
life's
all the
been
boys,
leading
they
to
had their
this.
hairs parted, combed down, and they just looked so obedient. When a group of the students passed the parents on tour, they would pass in a single file line to not take up space in the hallway. They never made eye contact with the parents. Either they're looking straight ahead or on the ground. It's kind of like a military drill. Their shoulders are square, their backs are straight. I mean, some of the parents even felt self-conscious, like, oh my God, why does this 10-year-old have better posture than me? And they start straightening their posture. How is it that our own children, they're like my kid, before they came to this academy, they had tech neck. They had hunchback posture from being on the computer all day. And now these kids are graceful like ballerinas. And they're all silent. Not a single sound is coming from any of them. Even if they saw their own parents in the hallways, never made eye contact. They didn't even acknowledge their mom or dad in the same space, like 5 feet away from them. They just continued walking to class in a single file line.
Shah
Wow.
will disown me.
Everyone here is so disciplined.
I'm truly lost.
The smartly dressed teacher
You are
turns
already
around.
lost, little
Yes,
warrior.
we use the Merida method.
A lost child,
It's a Japanese technique.
frightened by
We teach the
wolves.
students
What
to
did you
accept
say?
things as they are. And
Much
only
has been
then will
promised
they be
to you,
truly free.
hasn't it?
The parents all
But what has
glance at
been
each other.
taken from
They're
you?
like, okay, Japanese method,
What do you
Chinese
know
method,
of your
Western
own
method.
heart?
Who cares?
Your
As long
own
as our
life?
children are being taught
Lay a
well.
hand on me in friendship.
At the end of
Not
the
quite
tour,
showering.
as the parents are walking
And I
towards
will
the door,
fight the battle
they're
that has
thanking
been
the
waiting
teachers,
for
the
me
guides.
this last
I mean, what a
century.
lovely job you guys have done. I mean,
Then-
truly, we can't thank you enough.
then
Thank
we
you
will
for taking
have
care of
much
our
to
children.
discuss.
The parents continue to walk out in bliss. They would kind of glance at each other as if to say, I mean, can you believe how amazing this is? A lot of them had been on this wait list for this academy for months, if not almost a year. And to finally get in, it's like a dream come true. And it's not even a cheap dream.
Our Lady of Silver, hear me. She She who guides the Moon Maiden Selûne, mother of the
Neither.
so-called
But
Night
look at the
Song.
way they teach the kids. I mean, the parents cannot wait to go home and brag to their friends about the fancy academy that their children are in. And I mean, it's amazing. Tell their colleagues about how elite and classy the boarding school is. You should have seen the gates. You would think that the school is guarding the Queen of England in there. They were just so excited. So excited. That they ignored the blatant red.
I am resplendent. You have given me a great gift, little warrior. Don't you find it oh so curious that you would spurn your dark lady? Perhaps you feel a stirring of the truth already. But that will come later. There is a battle yet to be fought. You have done what we feared was impossible.
But look
You
at the
have
way they
released
teach
me
the
from a
kids.
century
I mean,
of
the parents
sorrow.
cannot wait to go home and brag to their
Your
friends about the
power is
fancy
great.
academy that their children are in. I
So
mean,
too
it's
must be your
amazing.
weapon.
Tell their colleagues about
You
how
must
elite and
choose what you
classy
will
the
wield.
boarding school is. You
And
should
the
have seen
Moon
the gates.
Maiden will
You would think that
provide.
the school is guarding the Queen of England in
Thus
there.
I have said.
They were just so
Thus will it be
excited.
so.
So excited
Are you
that they
ready?
ignored the blatant red flags. Some of them could have sworn, later, that they heard the faint sound
And it shall be yours. And then, we're going to kill Ketheric Thorn.
of children screaming for help. But you know, they didn't wait all these months on the wait list for nothing.
We need to leave.
Let's talk about
Lady
spooky
Sharwood
season.
stand for
Okay,
us to be
spooky
here, not
season
after what we did.
is here full force and I'm thick inside of it. Spooky season for me lasts until about Christmas time. And every weekend during these last few months of the year, rotten. That's expressvpn.com/rotten. expressvpn.com/rotten.
That's what frightens me.
After the silent
She must
room,
be
each
angry.
student is given a red cloak
Yet
to wear.
I
Their
don't
uniform,
feel it.
that's it. No phones, no
hear
personal
it.
belongings, their sense of identity is gone. They're just
only
another person
silence.
in a red cloak. They're part of the bigger picture.
Let's get
They
out
would
of
be
here,
given some
please.
basic human necessities,
Whatever's
like a
coming, I
dorm room
don't
to
want
share
to
with
be in
other
the heart of the
students,
Shadowfell
and
when it
still no
finds me.
AC. So it's like 100 degrees
The
in that
Night
dorm
Song will
room.
be headed for
They
Moonrise
get a
Towers.
flushable toilet, a bit more
We'd
food,
better
but
get
that's about
there
it.
and
They
see
were
what she's
essentially
unleashed
prisoners
against
in a
Ketheric
torture
Thorn.
academy. They would have to wake up at 5 a.m. every single morning. First thing that they do is pray to the Confucius statue outside. It's like this massive statue of Confucius. They would have to attend classes where the teachers would just hand out pages upon pages of old Chinese literature, and they would have to memorize the pages word for word. Not even soak in the knowledge from it, but memorize it word for word and then rewrite it. They're not even learning. It's nothing at this point. It's just memorization that they forget. But if they don't even do that perfectly, they would be hit and beaten. At the front of the classrooms, there were typically two things on display for the students. A metal ruler. This metal ruler was as thick as your phone is thick. Solid metal, almost 2 feet long. They would hit your palms with this. After about 5 hits, you could no longer write. You couldn't even close your fingers halfway because of how swollen and inflamed your hands would be. The minimum punishment was 5 strikes to the hand, but there was no maximum punishment. It would depend on the teacher's mood. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 30. And there was no reasoning on why you would be hit. Even if you used the wrong word or didn't respond fast enough or genuinely just breathed a little too loud for the teacher's liking, you could get beaten up. To give you an example of how random these punishments were, every single night, the academy held moral exams. They would call out all the students into the courtyard, and the teachers would lie.
Ketheric's head in two.
Might as well take a look.
In her blood be anointed. dark Justicia.
Better take a look. Forgive me.
Shadowheart? You all right?
I thought I was done for. I thought perhaps I might have been dead. This is all like some sort of terrible dream. But it's real, isn't it? I stood before the night song. I heard Lady Shah's words. And I failed her. Worse than failed her, I defied her. Just because of what that Asimar said. I tried to leave, but Shah blocked me. Punished me for failing her. I thought I knew the limit of pain that the incurable wound could inflict, but I had no idea. It felt like I was suffering the agony of 1,000 people all at once. My blood was boiling, my hair was on fire. I thought I'd claw my own face off with the pain. But then she released me. Banished me, more like. She said I was an outcast. That all of her children would know me and revile me.
Shadowheart looks distraught, abandoned by her goddess and all former allies. And as for her divine magic, admitting who empowers her now may break her spirit for good.
Thank you. You're a constant source of comfort. Nightsong promised she'd tell me something about myself. I need to speak with her as soon as I can. What she said to me back in the Shadowfell about the wolves, that's no coincidence. She took flight to hunt down Ketheric Thorm. All I can do is help hasten his demise, and hope that answers soon follow. Do you really need to ask? I'm sorry. I have a lot on my mind. The Shadowfell, Nightsong. I can think of little else. Yes. I'm counting on it. I have little else to turn to. The sooner I speak to Nightsong, the sooner I'll know.
Keep your distance, darling.
The book is locked tight, with no You try to examine the book, but the longer you feel the darkness radiating from the book. It's delicious. You feel better the second the voices return, loud, but they have no hold on you.
You dumb fool! Who knows what power contains?
Nothing important is ever easy.
Cut and run. Yes.
This is the one Sceleritas sent you to kill. Every scrap of your marrow yearns to end her.
Hold. Who are you? And what are you doing here?
Your body yearns to kill this cleric more than anything else. You know it deep down in your writhing intestines.
I saw them flying. The path of light. They seemed headed straight for Moonrise Towers. This might all be... Rest here, if you need. Then finish this. None of us will be safe while Ketherick is alive. Moon Maiden,
You had something to do with the light, right? I knew it! This is the end for Ketherick. Stuck up while you can. What am I to do?
Attention!
Pleasure doing business with you. Don't be shy. Have a gander at the finest stock.
Swift as my feet can carry me.
Of course.
We'll figure this out, all right?
Why does everything go wrong? Premium trinkets and doodahs.
Easy. We should open our own last night, best song. It's us small. I thought maybe we could just do it ourselves. I don't know. I don't think Mo would like that. The sky looks so pretty with the light.
Let's see what this does.
Don't be shy. Have a gander at the finest stock. Premium trinkets and doodahs.
What if one of us stays here while the other looks for Roland?
Last night's best bargains right here.
Then we
Let's have a look.
be shy? Have a gander at the finest stock.
Whatever that light is, the Harpers and the Flaming Fists can deal with it. We'll follow once it's safe.
Of course Roland isn't here. Of course.
We'll figure this out, all right?
Careful! Don't
I say every lost soldier in this place.
Doodahs.
I don't like the sky. It's too big.
This place has been buzzing with talk of an adventurer who found us an angel.
Whoever or whatever is causing that light is on our side.
Last light.
People just ran off and said.
We don't even know how long Roland's been gone.
Let's listen to the message again. Maybe we missed something. Roland said sit tight. But what's taking so long?
Leah, Cal, if you see this, stay put. I will return in a 10-day at most. I repeat, stay put.
We'll need help to survive those shadows.
Of course Roland went looking for us. If you see him, send his ass back here, and fast.
Premium trinkets and doodahs.
Path to Moonrise is opening up.
Did you see it? The path of light. That's good, right? Means we might make it out of here alive. I'll be here if you need anything.
Don't burn yourself.
Did you see it?
Can't give up now.
for a warm bed and full stomach, look no further. Welcome to the Last Light Inn.
Something good here, I hope.
Looks like an ambush.
Something over there.
Count on me.
Let's go.
Let's finish this.
keep going.
Torment!
Nothing will stand in my way.
Time to see what new horror's waiting for us.
At the ready. No traps, please.
My faith will guide me. Whatever comes, I'm ready. Let's try this way.
Must lug my guts through this hell. together.